The alarms screamed through Kirin's station like dying animals. Red lights flashed in every corridor. The scourge had come and they had come hungry. Captain Park ran through the smoke-filled hallway, his boots heavy on the metal floor. Behind him, 32 soldiers followed. They were the best humanity had to offer. They were also the only ones crazy enough to volunteer for this mission. "Captain, we have 300 meters to the royal chambers," said Sergeant through the radio. Her voice was calm but could hear the fear underneath. They all felt it. The scourge did that to people. "Keep moving," ordered. "We stop, we die." The scourge were not like other enemies. They were not soldiers or warriors. They were hunger given form. Each drone was a nightmare of black chitin and too many legs. They did not fight for land or power. They fought because they needed to eat and everything was food to them. Kirin Station was the largest trading post in this sector. 10 million souls called it home. Now those souls were running, dying, or already gone. The Scourge fleet had appeared from nowhere, and within hours the station was falling. But the royal family was still trapped inside. Emperor IV of the Empire had been visiting the station with his 5 daughters when the attack began. The evacuation ships could not reach the royal chambers. The Scourge had cut off all paths. All paths except one. And his squad had fought through the maintenance tunnels, the cargo bays, and the abandoned sections of the station. They had lost 5 soldiers in the first hour, another 3 in the second. The Scourge just kept coming. "Contact left," someone shouted. Spun and fired, his plasma rifle lit up the darkness and a Scourge drone fell with a hole in its chest, but 2 more took its place, then 4, then 10. "Fall back to the junction," yelled. "Move, move, move." They ran, they always ran. Fighting the Scourge was like fighting the ocean. You could kill one wave, but another would follow, and another, and another. Private Lee fell first. A drone caught his leg and pulled him down, heard him scream, but there was nothing he could do. If he stopped, they would all die. "Keep moving," he ordered, his heart breaking with every word. They reached the junction and sealed the door behind them. It would not hold for long, nothing held against the Scourge for long. "How many?" asked. Sergeant counted heads, her face went pale. 19, Captain, we lost 19. Closed his eyes for just a moment. 19 names. 19 families back on Earth who would never see their loved ones again. He would carry those names forever. "The royal chambers are 50 meters ahead," he said. "We get the Emperor and his family out. That is our mission, nothing else matters." They moved forward, the station shook around them as explosions rocked the outer sections. The Scourge were tearing Kirin apart piece by piece. The door to the royal chambers was thick and heavy. It had been designed to stop armies. But the Scourge did not care about doors. They were already cutting through from the other side. "Defensive positions," commanded. "We hold here until the evacuation ships arrive." His soldiers formed a line, 13 humans against an endless swarm. It should have been impossible. It should have been suicide. It was. The door exploded inward and the Scourge poured through like black water. Fired until his rifle overheated, then switched to his pistol. When the pistol ran dry, he drew his combat knife. Around him, his soldiers fell one by one. Sergeant went down fighting, taking 6 drones with her. Private died protecting a wounded comrade. Corporal Sora held the left flank until the very end. Fought like a man possessed. His armor was torn, his body was bleeding from a dozen wounds, but he would not stop, he could not stop, not while the royal family cowered behind him. Through the chaos, he saw them. The Emperor, old and terrified, 4 beautiful princesses glowing with soft light, their faces masks of fear. And a 5th princess, smaller than the others, her skin dim and gray, helping wounded servants onto escape pods. The 5th princess gave her seat to a child, a maintenance worker's daughter. She stayed behind so that the little girl could live. Saw this, he remembered it. Even as the Scourge tried to kill him, he remembered. The last of his soldiers fell. Private, the youngest of them all, died with a smile on his face. He had bought the evacuation ships 3 more seconds, 3 precious seconds. Stood alone. The Scourge commander emerged from the swarm. It was larger than the drones, smarter, more dangerous. Its eyes glowed with alien hunger. Had no weapons left, his rifle was empty, his pistol was broken, his knife was stuck in a dead drone. So he used his hands. The fight was brutal and short. The commander was stronger, faster, and deadlier, but was human, and humans did not know when to quit. He broke the commander's arm. It broke 3 of his ribs. He tore out its throat. It shattered his helmet. In the end, they both fell to the ground, covered in blood and ichor. But only one of them got back up. Stood over the commander's corpse, swaying on his feet. The remaining drones hesitated. Without their commander, they were confused, lost. The evacuation ships arrived. The royal family was pulled to safety. The wounded servants and the maintenance worker's daughter were saved. Watch them go, then he fell. Emperor IV watched through the security feeds as the human captain collapsed. 32 soldiers had followed him into hell. 32 soldiers had died so that the royal family could live. The emperor was old, but he had never seen anything like this. Humans were supposed to be weak. Their lives were short, their bodies fragile. They had no great technology, no ancient wisdom. They were children among the stars. And yet this one human had done what entire fleets could not. He had held back the scourge. He had saved an empire. Retrieve him, the emperor commanded. Heal him, and when he wakes, grant him whatever he desires. His advisors looked shocked. Your Majesty, he is only a human, surely. He is a hero, interrupted, and we owe him everything. The medical teams rushed to Kirin Station. They found lying in a pool of blood surrounded by dead Scourge. His heart was still beating, barely. They brought him to the finest healers. They used technology that humanity had never seen. They rebuilt his broken body piece by piece. And while he slept, the galaxy waited. A human had saved the Empire. Now the Emperor would give him anything he wanted. The only question was, what would he choose? They were beautiful, everyone in the galaxy knew this. Their skin glowed with soft light like stars caught in flesh. Their voices were music, each word a note in some endless song. They moved like water, graceful and smooth, and when they danced, even the coldest hearts would weep. Emperor IV had 5 daughters. Each one was more beautiful than the last. Each one was famous across 100 star systems. Princess was the eldest. She was tall and strong, her glow as bright as a sun. She commanded the war fleet and her enemies feared her name. When she walked into a room, everyone stopped to stare. She was power made flesh. Princess was the second daughter. Her light was softer, warmer, like a gentle dawn. She was a diplomat, a speaker of words that could end wars. Kings and presidents begged for her attention. She could make allies of enemies with a single smile. The twins, Princess and Princess, were artists. They painted with light itself, creating images that hung in museums across the galaxy. Their beauty was delicate, refined. People traveled for years just to see their work. And then there was Princess. Was different, she had always been different. Where her sisters glowed with brilliant light, skin was dim, gray almost, like a candle that had nearly gone out. Where her sisters sang with perfect voices, spoke softly, almost in whispers. Where her sisters danced with grace, stumbled and tripped. The court had a name for her. They called her the Dim One. They said it behind her back, but always heard. She had learned to hear the whispers very well. Her mother, the Empress, rarely looked at her. When she did, her eyes held disappointment. Had seen that look so many times that she no longer felt the pain. She had become numb to it. Her sisters were not cruel to her. They were simply busy, had fleets to command, had treaties to sign, and had art to create. They did not have time for their youngest sister, the one who brought shame to the family. So spent her days alone. The palace was vast and there were many places to hide. His favorite was the old library in the East Wing. Nobody went there anymore. The books were ancient, written in languages that most had forgotten, but had taught herself those languages. She had nothing else to do. She read about dead civilizations, extinct species, lost technologies. She learned about the of old, the ones who lived before the empire, before the light. Those ancient were not beautiful, they were warriors. They burned with fire, not gentle glow. But those days were gone, they had evolved. They had traded strength for beauty, they had become creatures of light and song. Sometimes wondered what it would have been like to live back then, when being dim would not have been shameful, when strength mattered more than shine. But those were foolish dreams, the past was dead, only the present mattered. And in the present was nothing. The day the Scourge attacked Kirin Station was in her chambers reading about the fall of the Empire. She had just reached the chapter about their final battle when the alarms started screaming. Everything happened very fast after that. Guards burst into her room and dragged her to the royal chambers. Her sisters were already there, surrounded by soldiers. Her father, the Emperor, was speaking into a communication device, his face pale. The evacuation ships cannot reach us, he said. We are trapped. Watched her sisters, was angry, packing like a caged animal, was calm, trying to comfort the servants, and held each other, their light flickering with fear. Nobody looked at, nobody thought about her at all. She was invisible, as always. The hours that followed were filled with terror. They heard the fighting outside. Explosions, screams, the sound of plasma fire and dying soldiers. Then the door exploded. But it was not the Scourge who came through, it was humans. Had never seen humans before. They were small compared to, their skin did not glow, their voices were rough, they looked like nothing special. But the way they fought was something else entirely. The human soldiers formed a wall between the Scourge and the royal family. They fired their weapons without stopping. When one fell, another took his place. They did not run, they did not surrender. They died one by one, but they did not stop. Watched in horror and amazement. These creatures, these fragile humans, were giving their lives for strangers, for people they had never met, for an empire that was not their own. Why, she could not understand. They would never do such a thing. They valued their own lives too much. They valued beauty and art and comfort. These humans valued something else, something could not name. As the battle raged, noticed the servants. The cooks, the cleaners, the maintenance workers, they were cowering in the corner, forgotten. Nobody was helping them, nobody cared. Moved without thinking, she went to them, took their hands, guided them toward the escape pods. She helped them climb inside one by one. "Princess, you must come too," one of the servants said. "There is room for you." But there was not room, the pod was full. And there was a child, a little girl, the daughter of a maintenance worker. She was crying, clutching her mother's hand. Looked at the child, then she looked at herself. She was the dim one, the worthless princess, the shame of the royal family. But this child was innocent. This child had her whole life ahead of her. "Take my seat," said, "I will wait for the next one." She lifted the girl into the pod and sealed the door. The pod launched, carrying the servants to safety. Turned back to the battle, there were no more pods, she would have to wait. She expected to feel fear, but instead she felt something strange, something warm. She had done something good, something real. For the first time in her life, she had mattered. Even if no one ever knew, even if she died here, she had made a difference. The human captain was still fighting. He was the last one left. All his soldiers were dead around him, but he would not fall. He fought the Scourge commander with his bare hands, and somehow, impossibly, he won. Watched him collapse. She watched the evacuation ships finally arrive. She watched as her family was pulled to safety. And then she was pulled out too, almost as an afterthought. On the ship, her sisters hugged each other and cried. Her father spoke to his advisors about rewards and ceremonies. Her mother fussed over his torn dress. Nobody asked what had happened. Nobody asked about the servants she had saved. Nobody asked why her hands were shaking. She was invisible again. But somewhere below, in a medical bay, a human captain was being kept alive. A human captain who had seen everything. A human captain who had seen her. Did not know this yet. She did not know that her life was about to change forever. She simply sat in the corner of the ship, watching the stars go by, and wondered if anyone would ever truly see her. Captain Park woke up in a room made of lights. The walls glowed soft blue, the ceiling pulsed with gentle warmth. Everything smelled clean like morning air after rain. For a moment thought he was dead. This place was too peaceful, too beautiful. It could not be real. Then he tried to move and pain shot through his body like fire. Real, definitely real. "You are awake." A healer appeared beside his bed. She was tall and graceful, her skin shimmering with soft light. "Please do not move, Captain, your body is still healing." "My squad," said. His voice was rough, broken. "Where is my squad?" The healer's glow dimmed, just a little, just enough. "I am sorry, Captain, you were the only survivor." Closed his eyes, he had known, deep down he had known, but hearing the words made it real. 32 soldiers, 32 friends, gone. He felt something cold against his chest. His dog tags, and beside them 32 more. The healer must have found them on his body. He had collected them during the battle, taking each tag from each fallen soldier. 32 names, 32 lives, all he had left of them. "The Emperor wishes to see you," the healer said. "When you are ready, he wishes to thank you." "Thank me," laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I failed, they are all dead." "You saved the royal family. You saved over 300 servants and workers. You killed the Scourge commander." The healer's glow brightened. "You are a hero, Captain. The entire galaxy knows your name." Said nothing. Heroes did not feel like this. Heroes did not carry the weight of 32 deaths in their hearts. But he would meet the Emperor. He would accept whatever thanks they wanted to give. And then he would go home, back to Earth, where he could mourn in peace. 3 days later, stood in the grand hall of the Imperial Palace. The hall was enormous. The ceiling was so high that clouds floated near the top. Thousands of people filled the space. Ambassadors from 100 species, nobles from every corner of the galaxy, news drones flew overhead, broadcasting the event to billions of viewers. Felt small, his new uniform was stiff and uncomfortable. His body was healed, but his soul was still broken. He did not belong here among these glowing, beautiful people. But he walked forward anyway, because that was what soldiers did. Emperor IV sat upon a throne of pure light. He was old, his glow faded with age, but his eyes were sharp and clear. Beside him sat the Empress and the 5 princesses. Recognized them from the battle. Tall and proud, warm and smiling, the twins, delicate and graceful, and in the back almost hidden the 5th princess, the dim one. She was looking at the floor. Captain Park of the Terran Expeditionary Force, the Emperor announced. His voice echoed through the hall. You have done what entire fleets could not. You have saved my family. You have saved my people. The Empire owes you a debt that can never be repaid. The crowd murmured in agreement, said nothing. Therefore, the Emperor continued, I grant you this. Whatever reward you desire, it shall be yours. Name anything in my power to give, and it is yours. The hall fell silent. This was unprecedented. No outsider had ever been offered such a gift. The Empire was vast and wealthy, could ask for planets, for fleets, for treasures beyond imagination. But was not thinking about treasure. He was thinking about the battle, about the chaos and the blood and the dying. And in the middle of all that horror, he was thinking about one moment of light. Not the glowing kind, the other kind. He had seen a princess give up her seat for a servant's child. He had seen her stay behind when she could have run. He had seen her help the wounded when everyone else was thinking of themselves. That moment had stayed with him, through the pain, through the healing, through the nightmares. That one moment. I have observed your household, your majesty said. During the evacuation, I saw your daughters. The crowd leaned forward. Princess lifted her chin proudly. Princess smiled with practiced grace. The twins looked at each other knowingly. I saw 4 princesses ushered to safety by guards, continued. But I saw a 5th princess helping wounded servants onto escape pods. She gave her seat to a maintenance worker's child. She stayed behind when she could have saved herself. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Confusion, surprise, the Emperor frowned. I choose princess. Silence. Complete absolute silence. Then the whispers began, shocked, disbelieving whispers. The dim ones. He must be joking. Is this human mad? In the back of the room, Princess looked up. Her eyes were wide. Her dim skin flushed with color. She looked like she had been struck by lightning. The Empress spoke first. Captain, perhaps you do not understand our customs. She is not like her sisters. She cannot glow. She cannot sing. She is. She is the one I choose, interrupted. His voice was calm but firm. I saw her character when death was all around us. I saw her give everything for strangers. That is worth more than any glow. The Emperor raised his hand for silence. He looked at for a long moment, then he looked at his youngest daughter. Was shaking, her hands were clasped together. She looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. The Emperor said softly, Is what this human says true? Did you give your seat to a servant's child? His voice was barely a whisper. Yes, father. Why did you not tell me? I did not think it mattered. Something changed in the Emperor's eyes, something had never seen before. It might have been pride, it might have been shame. Captain, the Emperor said slowly, you could have anything, riches, power, my finest daughter, and you choose. I choose the one who earned my respect, said simply. Your finest daughter is not the one who shines, she is the one who stayed behind. The crowd did not know how to react. Some laughed nervously, some looked horrified, but a few, just a few, looked thoughtful. Perhaps they were remembering times when they had judged worth by light instead of action. The Emperor stood. He was not a tall man, but in that moment he seemed to grow. Very well, Captain. If Princess accepts your proposal, you shall have her hand. All eyes turned to. She was still shaking, still frightened. This was too much, too fast. Her whole life she had been invisible. Now the entire galaxy was watching her. But she looked at this strange, small human who had seen something in her that no one else had ever seen. And for the first time in her life, she felt like maybe she was worth something after all. I accept, she whispered. The crowd erupted, some cheered, many did not, but it did not matter. Walked through the crowd to where stood. He was smaller than her, rougher, without any of the beauty her people prized. But when he took her hand, felt something warm, something real. Why, she asked, her voice trembling, why me? Looked at her with eyes that had seen too much death. Because I know what courage looks like, and you have more of it than anyone in this room. Did not know what to say. No one had ever said anything like that to her before. So she just held his hand. And in the back of the hall, her sisters watched in shock. Her mother watched in confusion, and her father watched with something that might have been the beginning of understanding. The dim one was no longer invisible. And that was just the beginning. The wedding was quiet. No grand celebrations, no galaxy-wide broadcasts. The court wanted it done quickly, like removing a splinter. The sooner it was over, the sooner they could forget about it. Princess wore white, as was tradition. But where her sister's wedding gowns had been covered in gems and light, hers was simple, almost plain. No one had bothered to make her something beautiful. She did not mind, she had never liked fancy things anyway. Wore his military uniform. It was the only formal clothing he owned. He stood at the altar looking uncomfortable, like a man who did not belong in palaces. Understood that feeling very well. The ceremony lasted 15 minutes. The emperor read the words without emotion. The empress did not attend. Sisters came but only smiled. The others looked embarrassed to be there. When it was over, the court returned to their normal lives. The dim one was married now. It was done. They could all move on. But for And, everything was just beginning. They moved into a small wing of the palace. It was far from the main halls, far from the glittering parties and the beautiful people. Had requested it. She knew they would not be welcome in the center of things. The first weeks were strange. Was quiet. He spent hours staring out the window at the stars. Sometimes he did not sleep at all. Would find him in the middle of the night, sitting in the darkness, the dog tags of his dead soldiers clutched in his hand. She did not know what to say to him. She had never been good with words. So she simply sat beside him, quiet and present, waiting for him to speak. One night he finally did. I hear them sometimes, he said. His voice was rough. My soldiers, I hear them calling for help, and I cannot save them. Reached out and touched his hand. It was a small gesture, but it was all she knew how to give. You saved me, she said softly. You saved everyone in those pods. You saved my family. It is not enough. His eyes were wet. It will never be enough. Understood then, this human carried his dead with him just as she carried her failures. They were both haunted, just in different ways. Then we will carry them together, she said. You do not have to be alone anymore. Looked at her, really looked at her. And for the first time since the wedding, she saw something in his eyes that was not pain. It was hope. The months passed, slowly something grew between them. It was not the passionate love of stories. It was something quieter, deeper. It was understanding. Taught about Earth, he told her about oceans and mountains and cities that glowed not with magic but with electricity. He told her about human food, about music that was rough and loud and beautiful. He taught her slow dances, the kind where you held someone close and swayed in the darkness. Your people dance to show off, he said, his arms around her. We dance because it feels good to be close to someone. Had never danced before, not really. Her clumsy feet had always failed at the forms, but human dancing was different. There were no right moves, no wrong moves. There was only the music and the warmth of another person. She loved it. In return, shared her knowledge with. She told him about the old civilizations, the dead empires, the secrets hidden in forgotten books. At first, he listened just to be polite, but soon he was asking questions, wanting to learn more. You know more about history than anyone I have ever met, he said one evening. Why do your people not value this? Laughed sadly, because it does not glow. Knowledge does not shine. It is useful, but it is not beautiful. That is stupid, said flatly. Blinked. No one had ever said such a thing so directly. I suppose it is. Your brain is more valuable than all your sister's light combined. Shook his head. Your people cannot see what is right in front of them. Felt something warm in her chest. No one had ever said she was valuable before, not once in her entire life. As time passed, she began to believe it. The galaxy did not forget about them. News spread of the human hero and his dim princess bride. Some found it romantic, others found it strange, many found it shameful. The court whispered that would soon tire of, that he would realize his mistake, that the marriage would quietly end and everyone could pretend it never happened. But the court did not understand humans. Did not measure beauty by light, he measured it by action, and every day showed him who she truly was. When political matters confused him, explained them. Her years of reading had given her knowledge of every species, every treaty, every hidden conflict in the galaxy. The ambassador is lying, she whispered to him before a dinner. His people signed a secret deal with the 3 years ago. They cannot be trusted. Smiled. How do you know these things? I read a lot and no one notices me. People say things when they think no one is listening. Her knowledge saved them again and again. Became known as a brilliant political mind. He never corrected people, but he always looked at when they praised him. She was his secret weapon, his partner, his equal. And slowly she stopped being invisible. The nightmares still came for. Some nights were worse than others. He would wake screaming, fighting enemies that were not there. He would shake with memories of blood and death and the sound of his soldiers dying. On those nights held him, she did not try to fix him. She did not offer empty words, she simply stayed. "You are still here," whispered one night, his face wet with tears. "Even after seeing this, you are still here." "Where else would I be?" asked simply. Looked at her with something like wonder. "My own species would have left by now. Humans are not patient with broken soldiers." "Then your species does not understand." Touched his face gently. "You are not broken, you are wounded, there is a difference." "What is the difference?" "Broken things cannot heal, wounded things can." Was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled her close and held her like she was the only real thing in the universe. "I chose well," he said into her hair. "When I chose you, I chose so well." Smiled, but he could not see it. "No, we chose each other." And in that moment, in that small room far from the glittering halls and the beautiful people, two wounded souls found something neither had ever expected. They found home. The court still whispered. The Empress still looked away. Her sisters still did not understand. But did not care anymore. She had spent her whole life trying to be something she was not. Trying to glow, trying to dance, trying to be beautiful in ways her body would not allow. Now she knew the truth. She was already beautiful, just in a different way. And she had found the one person in the galaxy who could see it. 2 years passed like a dream. And lived their quiet life far from the light of the court. They were happy. Not the loud happiness of celebrations, but the deep happiness of two people who understood each other completely. Then the scourge returned. The warning came in the middle of the night. Alarms screamed across the planet. The sky filled with ships, millions of them, blotting out the stars like a black cloud. The scourge had found and this time they had brought everything. Was out of bed before the second alarm. His hands moved automatically, reaching for weapons, for armor. The soldier in him was still there, buried but not forgotten. "They came back," he said. His voice was cold, focused. "They came back for us." Stood beside him, watching the ships descend. "What do we do?" "You evacuate, get to the ships, get away from here." "No." Turn to her. "This is not a debate. The scourge will not stop until everything is dead. You have to run." "I am not leaving you." His voice was steady, calm. "I stayed behind once before, remember, I do not run." Wanted to argue, he wanted to throw her over his shoulder and carry her to safety. But he looked into her eyes and saw something he recognized. Courage, real courage, the kind that does not bend. "Then we fight together," he said, "until the end." The battle for the was the largest in galactic history. Fleets from a dozen species came to help. Human soldiers, warriors, battle beasts, they fought in the skies and on the ground, holding back the endless tide of scourge drones. But it was not enough. The scourge were too many. For every drone that fell, 10 more took its place. The outer cities burned, the great museums crumbled, the gardens of light became fields of ash. Fought on the front lines, leading a mixed force of humans, and his body was older now, slower, but his mind was still sharp. He held positions that should have fallen. He saved lives that should have been lost. But even he could not turn the tides. Princess fell defending the northern wall. Princess was wounded trying to negotiate a surrender that never came. The twins evacuated what civilians they could before the eastern docks were overrun. The emperor watched his empire crumble from the palace. He was too old to fight. All he could do was watch and despair. But was not watching. She was in the ancient library, the one place where she had always felt safe. She was reading faster than she had ever read before, searching through books that no one had opened in 10,000 years. The olds, the warriors who burned. She had studied them for years, fascinated by their power. They had been different from modern. They did not glow with soft light. They burned with fire, hot and bright enough to destroy anything in their path. But that ability had been lost. They had evolved away from it, trading destruction for beauty. Or had they? Found what she was looking for in a book so old that the pages crumbled at her touch. A medical text, a study of genetics. The gene still existed. It was dormant, hidden, suppressed. Most could not access it. Their light was too strong. It blocked the fire underneath. But in those whose light was dim, his hands began to shake. She had always thought her dimness was a flaw, a mistake, a sign that she was broken. What if she had been wrong? What if she was not broken at all? What if she was something else entirely? She ran to the front lines. Saw her coming and his heart stopped. "What are you doing here? You need to get to safety." There is no safety, said, not anymore, the scourge will not stop. Then we die fighting, gripped his weapon, together like we said. No, took his hands, I have another way. She told him what she had found, the dormant gene, the ancient warriors, the fire that her people had forgotten. I think I can do it, she said. I think the reason I never glowed like my sisters is because the fire was always there blocking the light. I just did not know how to reach it. Stared at her as you do not know if this will work, it could kill you. It might, smiled, and for the first time there was no sadness in it. But if I do nothing, everyone dies anyway, my family, our friends, you. She touched his face. I stayed behind once for a stranger's child, now I stay behind for you, for everyone. Wanted to stop her, every part of him screamed to protect her, to take her away from this nightmare. But he understood better than anyone. Sometimes you have to stand your ground, even when standing means dying. I love you, he said, the first time he had ever spoken the words out loud. His eyes filled with tears, I love you too, I always will. And then she walked toward the scourge. She stood alone on the battlefield, a dim figure surrounded by an ocean of black. The drones turned toward her, sensing easy prey. Closed her eyes. She had spent her whole life feeling the emptiness inside her, the place where the light should have been. She had thought it was hollow, broken. Now she reached into that emptiness, and she found something. Not hollow, not empty. Full. The fire was there, it had always been there. A burning core that her dimness had hidden, not destroyed. 10,000 years of sleeping flame, waiting for someone who could not glow to set it free. Opened her eyes. And she burned. Light exploded from her body, but it was not the gentle glow of her sisters. It was fire, pure, terrible, beautiful fire. It tore through the scourge drones like they were paper. It filled the sky with blinding radiance. It burned and burned and burned. The scourge army screamed. They tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. Fire was everywhere, consuming everything it touched. Shielded his eyes, watching in awe as his wife became something ancient and terrible. Something her people had forgotten they could be. The fire lasted for 3 minutes. When it finally faded, there were no more scourge. The invasion fleet was ash drifting on the wind. That was saved. And collapsed into his arms. She was still alive. Her dim skin now flickered with residual fire like embers glowing in darkness. She was exhausted, drained, barely conscious. But she was smiling. The Emperor came to the battlefield. He walked through the ash and the silence until he stood before and then he bowed. The Emperor of the Empire bowed to his youngest daughter, the one he had ignored, the one he had been ashamed of. I was blind, said, his voice shook. I looked at you and saw only what you were not, I never saw what you were. Looked at her father through heavy eyes. I did not see it either, not until someone showed me. Turn to, you chose her, when you could have had anything, you chose her, I thought you were foolish. I thought you were wasting your reward. No, said, holding his wife close. I was the only one wise enough to see her true value. Nodded slowly, humans measure worth differently than we do. Yes, looked at the destruction around them, at the empire that had been saved by the princess no one wanted. We do not measure people by how they shine in ballrooms, we measure them by how they burn when everything falls apart. Smiled up at him, her skin flickered with fire, her eyes glowed with something new. I finally glow, she whispered, just not the way they expected. Kissed her forehead, you always glowed, they just could not see it. The rebuilt, the empire recovered, but nothing was ever the same. Princess was no longer the dim one. She was the first flame, the warrior reborn, the savior of her people. Statues were built in her honor, songs were written about her sacrifice. But did not care about any of that. She cared about quiet evenings with her husband, about slow dances in the darkness, about being seen and loved for who she truly was. And she cared about the lesson she had learned, the lesson her people were finally beginning to understand. Worth was not about beauty, worth was not about light, worth was about what you did when no one was watching, what you gave when you had nothing left to give. Worth was about staying behind. Stayed behind once for a stranger's child, she stayed behind again for an entire empire. And she would stay behind again if she had to. Because that was who she was. Not the dim one, not the first flames. And that was more than enough.